Hey guys, it's Mike from Make Time Online, and I'm just going to go through a bit of a review over Podcourse, Pete Mcpherson's Do You Even Blog podcasting course. So just to start off with, there's a link below this which kind of goes into more detail. So if you want to just read through the blog and read through my actual review on a website, you can do that from the link below. But just to kind of give you a little bit of context, first of all, what is podcast? This review is going to go through what it is, the pros and cons, and just kind of giving you my opinion of the course and stuff like that. So first of all, the summary of what podcast is. Podcourse is a step-by-step course that uncomplicates the process of starting and growing a successful podcast. There's different pros and cons that I've put here. So some of the pros that I'll get to in a bit and some of the cons. But just first of all, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a backstory as to who I am and why I'm reviewing this and stuff like that. I basically have started a podcast back in January 2019. So it's my podcast here called Make Time Online. And I did it all without really going through any course and training and stuff like that, because the only courses that I could see were hundreds of dollars, or they just weren't really suited for people that were kind of wanting to build like a online brand or doing like some sort of like online business and blogging kind of styles sort of thing. So they were either like super expensive. So I didn't really know if I wanted to do this, full time, and what I was actually playing at. And I didn't even know whether you could make money or anything like that. So I basically ended up just kind of fumbling around, watching YouTube, figuring it all out by myself. And it took a while, for me to actually figure out what I was actually doing. But, I basically, the whole point of my podcast was to kind of chat to some online business owners, because I didn't really know what I was doing. People were like, what are you up to? And, I've sort of fumbled my way through it and eventually kind of started actually realizing what I needed to do and worked out ways that I could actually make money, but also provide proper value to people through the podcast. So, just my podcast is just kind of based around, you can see there's loads of different chats that I've had. It's got lots of affiliate marketing chats and things like that. Want to make money blogging. So I've had tons of 6-7 figure bloggers and stuff on the podcast that make that kind of money each year. And it's just kind of sums up. I've had loads of people who have used Pinterest for Pinterest marketing to get traffic to their blog, and just other ways that people have done it as well. Particularly at the start, I had a great chat with Grant Sabatier. And basically, I just want to show you I have a bit of knowledge to do with podcasting, but I did not go through a course. I had no idea how to do any of this. So what was Podcourse all about? And that's really what the main thing I want to get across to you here is that it just makes it crazy easy to actually produce a solid podcast that you can grow your online presence. I really wish that I could do this. And so if you're someone that's kind of been considering starting a podcast, but you don't really know where to start, and you're thinking but why is anyone going to listen to me? It's going to be super time consuming. It's overwhelming. I don't really see the return on investment. I can't afford fancy equipment and software and things like that. I 100% was in your shoes. If you're thinking any of those things, I thought all of these things before I actually started the podcast. And I just kind of had to figure it all out by myself without any kind of help. But Pete has a really cool video here, which is just pretty funny as well, but really answers all those questions. And I just wish this kind of existed before I actually started podcasting, because I just didn't really have any idea. I didn't really know what I was doing. But anyway, who is Pete Mcpherson? I've had a couple of chats with him actually on my podcast. He has his own podcast, which I'm guessing you probably know, called Do You Even Blog? And to be honest, Pete is just one of the few honest, down-to-earth, completely transparent online marketers that really exist. He doesn't do any hard sells, or he's not going to sell you. And he's just kind of this is kind of what I've produced, and if you want it, you want it, sort of thing. He doesn't really do any of that hardcore marketing and promoting products that are crazy expensive and getting a commission and things like that. He doesn't do any of that stuff. So I always I've related to him very quickly when I listened to his podcast, just because exactly for that. And he basically started in 2017 with his podcast, and now he's running like a 6-figure online business, and he has his membership program called Online Impact. He basically knows his stuff about podcasting. So how does it actually work? And I'm sure that's something that you want to know. So there are 91 HD video lessons, and there's also a workbook that comes with it, with the private Podcourse community. So the actual Podcourse training is really mainly videos. So things like this from Pete himself, and there's 13 different modules, which I will kind of run you through in the review. And there's also, I'm not going to go into this now, because in my review, if you want to see an inside look into all of this, I give you a full look through at some of the videos and things like that. And also I show you the workbook and podcast and the Facebook community and things like that. So that's all in this video here, which is in the review. So if you want to see that, there's a link below. So whenever I'm looking into whether I want to buy a product or a course, I always try and figure out like what is the cost to join, but then also what is the monthly ongoing cost, because it's very rare that a cost is just one payment and that's it. So it costs $197 to join Podcourse, or you can pay $109 over 2 months, so $218 overall. You can see all of that on the sales page. It makes it really clear. Like I say, it's no gimmicky like hardcore selling or anything like that in anything that Pete does, which is something that I've always really liked. But then also the thing that is amazing is that there are actually 0 monthly ongoing costs that you need to actually successfully run your podcast. And this is one of the things that stands out for me, is that Pete actually shows you free versions of every single thing that you do, and you can do it. You can make it sound super professional, including like even hosting. He'll even show you how you can actually do it and still have control of it, so you're not giving away your control to a platform like Anchor or something, which is free. He shows you all of these things in here without needing to spend a penny. So who is Podcourse for? It's kind of like 2 people that it's for, and it's one, people that want to make money on the internet, and so it's people that you might want to sell more of your digital products, you might want to get more affiliate commissions, and maybe even getting more like freelance gigs. Pete even describes how he made, in his first year of like doing blogging seriously, he made something like $40,000, and I think about $12,000 just came from freelance work, that just from people that he had chats with on his podcast. And then number 2 are people, anyone that wants to be like an influencer or grow that online influence. That influencer thing, I sometimes think is a bit of a, it's one of those funny words that people kind of have this negative connotation about. But, it might just be that you want other influencers to see your media and share your content, and also actually build like an authority and like actually make your business and your content important and actually provide real value. And that's something that your podcast can 100% do. So the Podcourse pros are, like I've already mentioned, there's no additional expenses. This is hands down. Anything else, any other of the like Podcourse gurus that I've seen out there, always, without fail, I have yet to see someone that recommends like everything free products. And quite often, something that I've heard numerous times from similar sort of people in this space are things like how hosting, they don't recommend free hosting. They recommend going with this. And that used to be true, but this is the thing. It's kind of like leads on to one of my other very big pros, which is the pro number 4, is that Pete's content is up to date. And like the tools and info that he shares are up to date. Some of the, some things that he recommends didn't exist this time last year, or didn't exist 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So I'm not saying that other people are telling you wrong things or wrong advice. They just might not be completely up to date. So that's a huge thing. A huge, massive pro about this is that Pete is showing the most relevant things, not just the things that give him the highest affiliate commission, which is what some people do online, unfortunately. And then number 2 is the unique topics covered. So like you can find out all this information for free online. You can find out any information for free online. Of course you can, but equally what Pete does is he takes a slightly different angle in some things. So things like finding tips on being your own person, finding your own podcasting voice, and looking after your guests. Like those sort of topics are not things that often come up in podcasting, YouTube videos and gurus and stuff online. So he's got some real serious, unique content in there that also really adds value and can really help your podcast. And then number 3 is the step-by-step workbook. This is, it's a huge thing really, because it actually has step-by-step tasks that you can check off, do it, on to the next thing. It's so important when you're actually new to trying something out. So if you're new to sorting out a podcast, it's so important to have that checklist. And then also the Facebook group and support. It is so important to actually have support and someone that you can just send a message to and be like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, because that is 100% going to happen. And Pete explains that in the course as well. Is like, even by using the course, you will have setbacks. You will have things that are challenging and just things that you don't know how to do. So having that support is going to be really important. And also there are some cons to Podcourse. And I really tried to think and try and be as accurate and as fair and honest as possible. But these are 2 of the things that I did notice that are important to be aware of. It is new. And whilst it's new, it means it's up to date and current and things like that. So that's great. But it does mean, there's not a huge amount of success stories from it, because hardly anyone's taken the course as of now, which we are in June 2020. And also there aren't hundreds of people inside the Facebook group to get support from. Whilst they are concerns, they're not it doesn't mean it's like a proven track record and there's loads of people to give you support. But the way that I like to look at it is that actually you can be one of the best success stories if you do this and get your podcast out there and do well from it. And also that you will just get more attention from people like Pete and other people in the community, and you just actually build better relationships with a smaller community. It's just proven, if you join a huge community, you can often just get lost in there and have no idea really what's going on, but you can actually help build this community. Also, number 2 is that it's definitely not for professional podcasters. So if you've been doing a podcast for years and you're already scaling and getting to high levels, you're probably not going to get a huge amount from it. There's not going to be real in-depth editing techniques and things like that. It is all about, this whole course is to uncomplicate the process of starting and growing a podcast. So I still found, even though I've had a podcast for 16 months, I still found so many little things that I could personally use right now to actually help with my podcast, so I'll kind of get onto some of those things in a minute, in my opinion. So you probably do know that, like I've already mentioned, you can find all of this information for free. But what I think about Podcourse compared to anything else I've seen that exists is that it's just so affordable, super transparent. It gives you all the honest options, tools, and everything out there. And it's just a huge time saver. The whole point of the course is to actually help you do this efficiently and effectively and get the best quality content out there for the minimal effort. Pete often talks about minimum viable effort, I think, something like that, in MV something. And that is the whole point of it. It really does help you do the least amount of work to get the best quality out of there. And I am a massive advocate of that, because otherwise you could just be spending, if you're trying to make every little thing perfect all the time, it just makes it so hard to do everything. And I think Pete is really understanding of that. And so he helps to really get that stuff out there. So even for me, like I said, even though I've been doing it, it's helped me learn how to actually find a sponsor. I just still thought, my podcast is still pretty new and stuff like that, and I shouldn't be asking for sponsors. But he shows you, even as a brand new podcast, even if you've never done it before, exactly how you can actually start making money from day one. In legit, so it shows you how to do it, and also shows you ways to. I've learned some really cool ways to actually grow my reach and involve the community and my podcasting audience a lot more, which I know I don't do, because it was never I hadn't set my podcast up very well from day one. So I know I've got a lot that I can still do and use better systems, just automate things a lot more and kind of like make the process much smoother. But obviously there are alternatives out there. I'm not saying like this is the only only course out there. You know, there's Power Up Podcasting by Pat Flynn, which is $799. There's Podcourse Paradise by JLD, which is about $97 a month. And there's also Engineering School by Chris Curran, which is, I think it's actually more than that now. Let me just show you some of these. So we have Power Up Podcourse, Podcasting, Pat Flynn, Entrepreneurs on Fire by JLD. It's about $1,000 per year or $97 per month. And it kind of gives you access to the resources and stuff. Or it's like a membership basis basically, and it keeps getting updated. And then, as I said, there is that. Yes, it is almost 3,000 podcast engineering. This is more for like if you are a hardcore podcaster, and I think it would probably be more suited for people that want to do this like full time and maybe even, you know, become like a freelancer for other podcasts and things like that, and really get the nitty gritty and all of those sort of things. So those are some other options, but there are some free ones as well, like Power of Podcasting for storytelling. But this is going to be so much less kind of in depth and not really suited for. It's just a generic overview kind of thing. So it's basically about 6 hours worth of work to get from there, but it'll give you a great overview if you really can't afford to spend a penny. And then finally, if you know that is something that you're interested in, you know, if Pete's course, if podcast is something that you're interested in, then you can just watch the free webinar, and it kind of gives you all the information that you need. So you can just click that link, you go to the webinar, learn more about what Podcourse does, if you haven't learned enough from this review already. And that kind of gives you, that will show you the process that you need to take to actually enroll for the course if it is something for you. And it's not an evergreen course, so it's not open all the time. So you may just need to check whether it is open at that time. Feel free to send me a message, like if you want to know, just leave a comment at the bottom and ask and I can let you know if it is open. And there's also a link in the description below if you just want to check that out and go straight through to actually get in the course at that time. But if you just want to get like, you're still not entirely sure podcasting is for you, then by all means just get the free podcast sheet at the bottom of the page, and I'll show you like all the tools and stuff that I personally use, and I'll show you even like free options for things that you can do. So if you just want to get like the tools and you don't want to learn actually how to brand it and put it out there and all of those kind of things, then by all means do that. And I really hope that's helped, guys. Take care. Catch you on the next one.